Hello, hello, and welcome to the Powerful Marketing Tips podcast. I am your host, Mari-Liis, and today we are addressing a challenge that every business owner and marketer faces. How to remain connected to our audience in a world increasingly saturated with AI and I would even say automated interactions, right? We know that while technology provides a lot of efficiency, it cannot replace trust. And my guest today is Steve Spiro, also known as the Master Connector. And Steve is a keynote speaker and the author of the How of a Master Connector book, in which he shares his journey from introvert to a leader in building high-level professional relationships. Steve, it is such a pleasure to have you here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Mari-Liis. It's great to see you. And hello, everyone. It's Steve Spiro, the Master Connector, coming at you live and direct here.
Yeah, I love it.
Great to be here.
So, Steve, I just listened to your book recently, and I must say I really loved it. And I love your story. You've shared how your journey, of how an introvert became a master connector. Please share it with us for a starter as well.
Well, no, you
I'm
have
sure
to get the book if you're listening to this. Okay. No, I'm just kidding. No, and of course, the book goes into a lot more detail, but, I was this guy that was bullied. I was picked on. I was a lot of rejection in my early childhood and, you know, grew up literally not having friends. I had one friend, he moved away, and my best friends growing up were characters on TV and, Captain Kirk from Star Trek and Ralph Cramden from The Honeymooners. I know this is an international podcast, so maybe you can relate to it, maybe not, but you could understand the gist of it. And so I was driven, motivated. My parents, my family struggled financially. Parents got divorced early on. So, and I was always had a chip on my shoulder to succeed. So I wound up going into advertising and marketing, went to high school and college for that. And then also wound up going on to getting a couple black belts in the martial arts. And all those things helped a little bit. But ultimately, I was closed off, introverted, just didn't like talking to people. I'd rather stay in my room and watch TV. And
Mm-hmm.
eventually, as I progressed in the business world and had some pretty strong goals financially, yes, I was doing really well in the advertising world, but I knew that I had hit a wall and I needed to break through somehow. And I was introduced to a mentor who challenged me to meet three strangers every day. And
Mm-hmm.
I've traveled internationally, and people are really friendly around the world. But in New York, where I'm from, if you talk to strangers, you're going to get shot, kidnapped, or killed. It's insane. It's ridiculous. But parts of the U.S., and I've seen, I've felt that way in other parts of the world too. When you talk to people after 5 or 10 minutes, they're like, "Hey, come on over for dinner," but not New York. It's a totally different world. So I started doing that, and still do it to this day, and still amassed a very large network. And that challenge has really been transformative for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I started building the network, people started asking me to speak. I'm obviously a inspirational keynote speaker. I recently did a TEDx, which I'm waiting for that to actually be produced, not produced, but released to the public. And I have a show, the Master Connector show as well. We broadcast
Mm-hmm.
every Wednesday at 1 o'clock EST. But
Mm-hmm.
it's crazy. But I found that during COVID, during the lockdown, and it was pretty heavy lockdown here in the New York area in the States, you know, in a time where we were typically disconnected, I felt the most connected. And I was getting on these calls on a weekly basis. I was doing probably, it wasn't just a weekly basis. I was probably doing 5 or 6 or 7 Zoom calls every day. And I found that in those calls, I was getting people to tell me things that like, Steve, I'm telling you things I've never told anyone before. People were getting balled up. They wanted to cry. And I'm like, there's something going on here. And I realized that I had kind of, if you will, cracked the code to connecting with people. And part of it was I was telling my story. I was telling my journey, the good, the bad, the ugly. And people really appreciated that. And then they started to open up. I found myself being others focused. So I have 4 pillars of my book, which is the same 4 pillars of my show, which are really the 4 pillars that I speak about, which one is being authentic, being that vulnerable aspect of ourselves. Second
Mm-hmm.
is being others focused, focusing on how can I add value. At the end of every call, I typically say, what can I do? How can I be a blessing? What can I do to add value for you?
Mm-hmm.
Three is having grit. And, that's sort of demonstrated, if you will, through some of the authenticity and some of my story, but having grit and working through the challenges that you have. And then fourth is building community and growing connections. So through those four pillars, I've really been able to, I believe, really connect really effectively. So going from this person that was introverted, that had no friends, didn't like speaking, I was dyslexic. So even when I was asked to speak in class during the elementary school, my whole head would turn beet red, because I would stutter when people reading the passage in a book. And now to be the master connector, speaking in front of live audiences, and it's crazy.
Well, I felt that transformation you shared on your book for sure. And
Appreciate
I
that.
remember it was your mentor who told you to reach out to
You
three
did,
strangers
yeah,
every day, wasn't
that's
it?
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But I would really love to touch the four pillars you talk about. But I'd like to ask many of our listeners also. They are brilliant marketers and small business owners, and oftentimes they feel that networking requires a loud, extroverted personality, which can feel exhausting. So, how did you learn that through your transformation? Because I understand that your mentor kind of kindly pushed you to reach out to people, but wasn't that exhausting for you? How did you overcome that part?
Well, that's a great question. There's lots of ways I could go with that. So first of all, introversion is an energy thing. I think you're alluding to that. And so after I'm around people, I'm still to this day exhausted after I'm around a lot of people. Okay. So I'm still an introvert, but I've learned how to get out of my shell. And what's interesting, and hopefully it'll come out soon, my TED talk speaks about the quiet advantage, how introverts can outconnect the rest. And I believe an introvert has an advantage in the networking scenario. And part of it is because we'd rather listen than speak. And that's a great
Mm,
feature because people love to talk about themselves. I've learned. So straight out of the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. What are people's most favorite topic? Themselves. What is their most favorite word in the entire the language, is their name. So I learned how to use those things. I'll say techniques, but it's really skills that you just learn. And so I got good at asking questions. I got good at listening and not just, asking a question and moving on to another topic, but digging a little bit deeper on that. So being a good
mhm,
listener is super important. I've learned that you don't have to be the most interesting person. You have to be the most interested person. And that's key
that's
here.
good.
Yeah. And so I don't have to be the jack of all trades. Now, I've read a lot of books, or in my case, audio books, Audible.
Mhm,
Thank God for that because with dyslexia, it's hard to read and get comprehension. But
mhm,
I've had a lot of books that are in my head, if you will. And so, yeah, I have a lot of great knowledge, and I really feel like when I enter the room is better because I'm in the room now. And that's not an ego thing, but I like to, because I feel like it can add value. But really, most
mhm.
importantly, I learned to be a listener and to ask meaningful questions.
I agree with you because I think introverts are better at using their two ears and one mouth in the
Mhm.
same proportion, right?
Yes. God gave us 2
So
ears and 1 mouth for a reason, right?
exactly. So, but still, you talk about be more interested in person, and I love it. So let's imagine a networking situation. Maybe it's how does it look like? Is it like I'm asking, okay, Steve, what is it that you do? And should I just follow up with, okay, tell me more. What do you mean by this or that? What are the questions that can be helpful here?
Absolutely. Well, I believe it starts with, so I'll go with the stranger danger piece of this, okay? And when I'm out in the world, to me, the world is my networking event, okay? So whether that be at the supermarket or at the gym I go to, Starbucks, I'll start by breaking the ice. And I might say,
Mm,
"Oh, those are nice glasses. Where'd you get them? Or what brand is that?" Or something. And
mhm,
then that
mhm,
could go 2 or 3 or 4 levels deep on the glasses or something around that. Yeah, I should probably, and I'll relate back a little bit, but a little bit. Not it doesn't go, from your glasses to me talking about how my eyesight's really bad and I went to a doctor and did a no. A little relatability and back to you. So
mm,
that could go
mhm,
2 or 3 levels deep. And then I might say, "So you from around here?" And you might say yes, you might say no, wherever you're from. Why did you move from a beautiful paradise in Florida where it's sunny all the time to this crazy cold place called New York, or whatever? And, well, was it a girl that motivated you to do that or what, whatever. And we get 2 or 3 or 4 levels deep on that. And again, all questions not to interrogate, but to understand, like we talked about. Seek to be understand, not seek to be understood. Okay, so that's another key piece. And then the third might be, what do you do? And I know that there's a mixed feeling on the what do you do question. Notice I didn't say what do you do for work, because you don't have to answer it that way. You could say, because I have a friend who's very, very wealthy, and when people ask him what he does, he's like, well, I go skiing, I travel a lot, you get the idea. So it doesn't have to be your
Mhm.
profession. But a lot of people leave with their profession, which is fine. And I might dig on that. What did you study that in school? How long you doing it? Do you enjoy it? What's your trajectory on that, career, whatever. Things there's 3 or 4 or 5 layers on that. And by the time
Mhm.
we've gone that far, it's probably 5 or 10 minutes long. What I typically say, and sometimes, Mary-Liis, they do people do ask, what do you do?
Mhm.
And that's the and I know that there's the elevator pitch. I don't think, in my opinion, elevator pitches are great to connect with people. Yeah, I feel like they're
Mhm.
salesy and I don't like them. So what I do, and I'll give you straight up what I say often at a networking event or in the community. I say, well, I started my first company out of college in advertising, did that for a lot of years, transitioned into technology consulting. I had a karate studio, I do speaking broadcasts, and I wrote a book. Just a few things. Tell me a little bit about more what you do as an accountant. So I give
Mhm.
them a little something. So don't think I'm like evasive in the question, but I bring it back to them. And I give them something that I believe is intriguing, that I think that they're like, wow, this sounds like an interesting person. But not to like impress them. That's not the point. It's just I like to say I throw the kitchen sink at them briefly so that I don't want them thinking, okay, if I say I'm a speaker and they have no, you know, interest in speaking, or they're not, I don't want them thinking, well, I don't want anything to do with this guy because I'm not a speaker. I don't know. I don't hire speakers. I don't want that. So I just figure, let me give you a little bit about who I am and what I've done so we can connect on a human level.
I love it. I'm listening to you, and I was thinking that I often feel myself while networking that people are trapped in busyness here as well. I mean, they're trying to react very quickly. And of course, everybody loves to talk about themselves rather than, leading this discussion with intention, as you share right now. So, can you relate that there is still not enough like quality maybe in these discussions, but more quantity because people are counting how many new connections did I receive from this event or the other? How do you see
So
that?
I want to go back because I think I got ADHD on myself and didn't finish. So after the 3 questions, the 3 directions of the question, and I'll get back to your question because I think it relates. I say, we should stay in touch. That's my fourth point to connecting
Mm,
with people. We should stay in touch. And at a networking event, a lot of people do have a card. So I might say, do you have a card? But if it's in the community, I said, let me give you my contact. Do you have your phone with you? Let me shoot you my number. Right. And I like that because if I say to somebody, give me your number, like the wall could go up a bit, right? People are a little apprehensive. So let me give you my contact. What's yours? You know what I mean? Like it's interesting. It's kind of psychological. So
that's
in a
good.
networking event, after we've done some connecting, and you're right. You can't build a relationship at a networking event. The purpose of a networking event is to collect as many cards as you can. And I know that is maybe counterintuitive, but it's what I believe in. Get as many connections as you can, make a good impression, and
Mm-hmm.
get their contact. But here's the key to answer your question. The secret is not at the networking event. The secret and the magic is in the follow up. And so everyone that you get contact information on, you follow up with, and you
Mm-hmm.
send an email or send a text encouraging to get on a call or to to have a follow-up coffee meeting. That's the
Mm-hmm.
key. It's where you start the relationship. You can't do it at a networking event. And if you spend yourself spending 20, 30 minutes with one person, great, but that's defeating the whole purpose of being at a networking event. So yes, collect a lot of
Yeah.
cards, but be intentional about following up with each and every one of them.
That's really good because as we always say the money is in the follow-ups, also
It
in
is
sales and marketing. We all know that. So that leads me to the networking ROI, right? So I remember you said your mentor pushed you to reach out every day to three strangers. So what was the result? How long did you do that? Are you still doing that?
still.
You still do that?
Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely.
Very good.
It's
Okay.
so there's an old school movie back in the day, American movie called Glengarry Glen Rossy. It's often quoted in the sales realm. He wrote on the blackboard. Not even I don't even think it was a whiteboard. I think it was a blackboard back in the day. He wrote ABC, always be
Always
closing.
peace.
Yes, right. So we know the phrase, but maybe not where the source comes from. It comes from that movie. I changed that. I mean, I'm not original in that, but ABC always be connecting. So to me,
Mm.
connection is a lifestyle. And by the way, I c- I'm referred to as the master connector, not the master networker, because networking is kind of like prostitution. It's like solicitation. It's ugly, but connection
Mm-hmm.
is really important. I think it's super, super important. So master connector. So I already lost track of your question. Did I partially answer
Always
it?
be connecting. That was
Yeah.
the, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's
So
really
you're
good.
asking about ROI. So here's the point. Part of my pillars, one of them is being others focused. Now,
Mm-hmm.
can I directly tell you, how I've gotten ROI in every single situation? No. But I will say this, that by being others focused, there's the law of reciprocity, the law of sowing and
Mm-hmm.
reaping. If you could not agree with the universal laws, God's laws, whatever you want to call it, right? But you could say, I don't believe in gravity, and you go on the top of the building and you jump off, you're going to go splat. I don't care what you think you believe. I know that the world that we live in
Yeah.
today, what people believe they know is truth could just be they believe it. Okay, well, you could believe that gravity doesn't exist, but you're going to go splat. Well, the
Mm-hmm.
law of reciprocity, I believe, works all the time. So what you sow, you reap. And it's also the law of increasing return. You plant three, if I don't know if you're up to the book on the section of the book I call the secret of the corn, but you put three or four kernels of corn in the ground, and from that grows stalk of
Mm-hmm.
corn with I don't know, thousands of kernels of corn from that three or four pieces of kernels of corn that you put. So you get back a lot more. And you get back what you put in. So my
Mm-hmm.
last 3 or 4 years financially have been incredible, and I believe it's because I've been that go-giver, AKA Bob Berg and John David Mann, the book, The
Mm-hmm.
Go-Giver, one of my favorite books. So, yes, I will tell you one in particular that comes to mind, it's most recent. So, through networking, I go to an ongoing regular networking meeting, which I do recommend. I think it's important to have a community that
Mm-hmm.
you go to regularly every week, and, I think I invited you to it, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
I was there
Yeah.
once.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, and so I met a young man there, it was that group or another chapter of that
Mm-hmm.
group, and a young man in his 20s, financial planner with Northwestern Mutual.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need any financial services, I don't need any financial planning, I'm all set in that realm. But I felt good guy. Let's stay in touch. I tried to be a resource for him. I offered up some connections. We stayed in touch. A year and a half later, recently, when I got back from my TED talk, he and I had a reconnect call, and I told him a little bit about what I was speaking on, which I think you alluded to. I talk about breaking barriers to create real human connection in this digital AI driven world, and I also talked about how I talk about this B2B sales, B2C sales. What about business to human?
Mm-hmm.
B to H, business to human, and kind of that going from transactional sales to transformational. And he's like, we need to have you in. We've got speakers that come in. Northwestern Mutual brings them in, but we should have you in. I think the team could really benefit from what you speak on. So, no, long story short, he said, I'm going to introduce you to somebody such and such, high up in the company. And he did. Most people, a lot of times they don't. They say stuff, but they
Mm-hmm.
don't. But he did. And then that person connected me with the chief development officer of Northwestern Mutual, which then now I'm officially booked as a speaker in September coming up from that one. And it was a paid speaking gig and decently paid speaking gig. So that's one example, right? But through networking with somebody that
Hmm.
had no clue that they would turn into some kind of lead for me to be a speaker. But what I've learned is you never know. Follow the rabbit
Hmm.
hole. And I think it's straight up for the book Alice in Wonderland and the movie. You follow the rabbit hole. You don't know where it's going to go, and it
Yeah.
can lead to something. So there's a mentality when you go into networking where, well, I want to go to a place where I'm going to get leads, or it's relevant for my industry. Yeah, okay, maybe, sure. But look at this example of, completely not something that I would have ever thought, but it led to business.
No, well, I'm with you 100%, and I'm all about. I can really appreciate, givers gain principles and all of that.
Yes.
And shout out to go-giver Bob Burke because he also was once our guest here.
Bob Berg, awesome.
Yep,
Yes.
we
He's
had
a guest
him
of our show
on.
too. Great guy. Love
Yeah,
Bob.
he's a great guy. So, but you already touched the AI topic for a second, and I'd like also to discuss and hear your thoughts about this digital trust crisis, I would even say, because, our LinkedIn and our inboxes are flooded with automated AI generated
I know.
outreach. So you also told your first pillar is being authentic, and the second one, being with others focus. Any thoughts here?
Well, I have lots of
It's
thoughts, but
crazy.
so I know AI is incredibly relevant right
Hmm.
now and it's on
Hmm.
top of mind. And from my fellow speakers, they're like, if you put AI in your talk, you're going to get, asked to speak on stage. So I have AI. I have, my topic talk keynote is the real AI, which is authentic influence. Okay.
That's good.
Yeah,
Authentic.
and so that I believe, listen, yes, AI has place. I use AI
Mm-hmm.
every single day, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
using it as a part of my reach out. And
Mm-hmm.
yes, so for example, some of the ways I use AI to help me with my daily posts. But it's still got to be, authentic. It's got to be me. And
Mm-hmm.
the good news is you can train AI to kind of speak your language. Side note, I did hear recently that LinkedIn, you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned LinkedIn. LinkedIn has I don't know if it's an algorithm or it's really been trained to pick up if your post, your content is AI generated, it somehow knows and will make you less popular. It'll penalize you from a visibility
Mm-hmm.
standpoint. So something to keep that in mind. But, I believe that there's value in AI. You could use it to do some
Mm-hmm.
initial reach outs. But ultimately, human connection, getting on an actual phone call. It's so crazy how many people are resistant to go from a social platform to a real conversation on phone or Zoom or if you're local and have coffee. It's insane. And I recently, I commented on a post. Actually, I'm connected with somebody. She sent her post to me to my inbox because my inbox message to them was, this person, let's get on a call. So instead of that, she sends me a post about this survey she did about, you know, what does she call it? Get to know each other calls. She says, "What do you
Mm-hmm.
think about get to know each other calls?" And the three responses that you could
Mm-hmm.
pick were all negative. Hate it, don't really care about it, don't want to do it, or something like that. There was none like one option. It's just I like it. So, of course, I didn't pick any of the three, and I put in the comments what I felt, which I think it's important to do that. And I said that it's in my opinion a little short sighted of her to not have one positive as an answer. And anyway, but I think it's super important to get on calls and take the connection beyond just a connection. Okay, so I have 30,000 connections on LinkedIn, which is true, which is stupid. That LinkedIn should change that so I can have more than 30,000. You can have unlimited followers on LinkedIn, but you can only have 30,000 connections. Don't ask me why they do that. But anyway, connection is a connection, but true connection, true human connection, you need to have a conversation. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
imagine if you're married to somebody and you only connect through messaging, you never speak. What kind of relationship is that? Right? You got to have conversations, real conversations. So AI is good to maybe initially start, but it's got to
Mm-hmm.
be others focused. It's got to be authentic. It can't be pitchy. ditch the
Mm-hmm.
pitch. I'm sick of this is clean. I'm with the letter P, but I'm sick of the pitch slapping. Okay. It's just, yeah, let's ditch the pitch. Let's get back to human connection. And yes, you can, for some of that, but just to actually get on a call.
That's really good. Let's do this. But let's touch also the grit and the community part from
Yes.
the book. So please, very briefly, talk about the grit part, because community is much more clearer, but maybe just, for listeners who haven't read your book yet. So what do you mean by grit?
The grit part.
Yeah.
Okay. Grit, having persistence, being able to get through the crap, if you will, excuse the French, but the first three letters of the word success is suck, SUC, right? So you got to get through the
Oh my God.
suck to get through success. And so grit is just being able to deal with the hard stuff. And because you're always going to have challenges. To me, I'm going to give you preempt the quote that you're going to ask me to give you, but one of my favorite quotes is, "In every adversity lies a seed of equal or greater benefit." And that's
Mm-hmm.
straight out of Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. You got to go through stuff. And so one of the things that I realized, and some of the things got shaped while I was in the martial arts. I learned a lot about grit in the martial arts. And the book, there's a lot of, parable stories from my martial arts training. In fact,
And
the
your
front
wife
cover,
is also with the black
she's a
belt.
black
Oh
belt
my God.
too. Yeah. If you've ever seen the movie Mr. and Mrs. Smith, you have a
I
visualization of
have.
our
It's a
relationship.
great,
Yeah,
it's,
it's crazy. But yeah, and on the front cover of my book, The Tao of a Master Connector, you see the black belt,
Mhm.
right? Because I think it's important. But grit, one of the things that I learned early on is I was the guy that I didn't miss a class. You know, I I hung in there. I stuck with it. And the reason I made black belt is I just did the work, stayed steady, never quit. Even when I was sick, I went to class. Even when my nose got broken really bad, I still stayed. I didn't go to the emergency room. I stuck with it. And because I did, I achieved success. And I think so many people, a good friend of mine named Jeff, he did a talk recently, and I don't think he invented the talk, but it's A zone, B zone. A lot of young people, and a lot of us in general, not just young people, they go for the exciting stuff. A zone is what's exciting, what's new, the new car, the new relationship, the new job. It's exciting. It's shiny object. It's awesome. And then the minute things get a little tough, they want to go to the next shiny objects, the next
Mhm.
fun thing, the next new thing. But true success happens in the B zone, which is where you stick through it and go through the tough stuff. And that's when you really, things happen. And, we've got a high divorce rate. I'm married 36 years. It's because we got through the tough stuff. And,
Mhm.
we didn't believe that there was a back door. We just said, all right, we're going to make it work no matter what. And, when you know that there's no back door and you got to make it work, you do the work to make it happen. When you know you could kind of, restart, try someone. And by the way, if you're divorced, I'm not criticizing, I'm not condemning you. I'm not, there's no judgment here, but that's what we chose to do. And because of that, we have a great relationship today.
It's very good comparison, actually. I feel also that in every relationship, both parties can do that extra mile, because
Yes,
this is what I got from your book. There is no traffic on the extra mile. I love
that's
that,
right.
by the way.
That's exactly right. Exactly.
That's really
Yeah.
inspiring.
Yeah. And listen, on the relationship side, if somebody is abusive or really, like, I
Of
understand
course.
there's times
That's
where
another
you have to
story.
end it, right? Like, but I'm just saying under the normal circumstances, you know, I don't know if it's different where you're from, but in the States, you have to take lessons and get tested for your driver's license.
Mhm.
You don't get tested and you have to take a course for your marriage license. We just know what we know from we see from
That's
our
a good
family.
idea. It's a good
I
idea.
think
It
it would
could
be good.
be.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really good point. But for the marketers and small business owners listening right now, feeling overwhelmed and maybe even perhaps stuck, in their current network. What could be one practical, immediate step from your own philosophy that they can take today to really start connecting more effectively? Because there are like 4 pillars. So, and doing that all at once can be overwhelming. So what would be the first step?
Well, hopefully my talk is not making you feel overwhelmed. I hope not. But if you're overwhelmed already, listen, I don't know if it's Lao Tzu, but the phrase, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step, or the journey, I think
With
it's
the first one.
roughly, that's the idea. So let's just start with something. How about either making a decision? Today I'm going to reach out to 3 people in my network and say, hey, I'd love to jump on a call to either reconnect or to talk, to get to know each other.
Mhm.
You can use ChatGPT to come up with something uh, nice. Hey, you could say, ChatGPT, what'd be a nice short message that I can send out on LinkedIn, direct message somebody that doesn't sound salesy, that just encourages us to get on a call. And then what they give you, you could modify it for your own personality, but reach out 3 people. How about just 3 people? Or if you're a little bold, try to meet a new stranger. If you're really
Mm,
bold, like my mentor challenged me, meet 3 new strangers. And by the way, that can mean out in the community or get, another way. Again, I use during the COVID times, LinkedIn became that way of really meeting strangers through LinkedIn. So that's an
mhm.
alternate way for me to do that. But meet a stranger danger, right? Just say hello. Just start by saying hello. You'll never know, right? You've got names in your phone, contact in your phone. Text somebody, and not for an agenda, not to try to sell them. Just say hello. How you doing? Right now we're in the season that spring is in the air, and in the Northeast, starting to get warm again. Hey, I'm loving the weather. How about you? Whatever. Just say something.
That's good. I love that. So, the same advice that your mentor gave you is still valid today. Just reach out to 3 strangers every
Yeah.
day and see where
Why
it
not?
goes. I
Yeah.
love it.
Keep it simple. Yeah.
Keep it
Don't
simple.
try to go far in your mind. Just take it by saying hello.
And this is how you really build a habit of being authentic and building a habit with, having these discussions with others. And even if that is today your biggest fear, this is especially why you should start doing that. I agree with you. So before we wrap it up here today, please share some more inspiration with our audience. So what is this one inspiring quote that really resonates with your professional philosophy and you want to share with us?
Well, I kind of said one, which is, in every adversity lies a seed of equal or greater benefit. I think that's a good one. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I also believe another one, and it's a little cliche, which is your network is your net worth. Okay. And last, along those lines, is your vibe is your tribe, right? And who you surround yourself with should really resonate with you. And we didn't touch much on community, but that is along the lines of building community. Those last 2 quotes, I believe it's important to have a personal mission statement. I created that right before COVID hit, and that was really
Mm-hmm.
helpful. And my mission being, the short version of it is to be the light. I have a vision of being paid to travel the world, speak and inspire, and be a beacon of light. And all that's part of that vision of being an inspiration, a light to people. And so come up with a vision, but ultimately, people will get behind that vision and you'll
Mm-hmm.
start to see how you can build communities. So I'm probably giving you way more than you asked for, but there you go.
No, that's really good reminders because most of our listeners know about Powerful Marketers Hub, which is our community for the marketers, right, globally. And I really love the reminder of your vibe is your tribe. So love it. But um, we would also like to hear this one song that motivates or grounds you, and we will add it to our guest Spotify playlist.
There was a couple that came to my mind. Pink Floyd, The Wall, because I had to break down walls for my own self to break through.
Mm-hmm.
Mandisa wrote a song called "An Overcomer." I've been an overcomer, but for some reason, right now, the song Eye of the Tiger is coming to mind. I have the song, from the Rocky movie, right? That
Mhm.
song is really coming to mind. I don't know for some reason. So I'm going to go with. I like to go with what my gut tells me. So Eye of the Tiger, which is um, it again similar Overcomer song, and that song kind of also often gives me chill bumps, right?
Mhm.
When I hear it played. So still does that for me today.
It's a true classic, right?
Yeah, it's a classic. It is a classic.
So, Steve, where can people connect with you and reach out? Because I'm pretty sure they want to do that. And of course, we will add all the links next to this episode, what you share with us.
Yeah, so definitely LinkedIn. I gotta clear out
Mhm.
my 30,000. So I promise if you reach out to me, we'll connect. We'll figure out a way to get in touch. So at least follow me on LinkedIn. If not, if you have the ability to message me on LinkedIn. You can also go to spiro-global.com. That's my speaker website. There's a way to reach me there. You could even try calling you reaching me on my email, which is steve.spiro@spiro-global.com. But I would love to connect with you and see how I can add value and be a blessing to you.
Well, thank you, Steve. I really appreciate all you shared with us today. I think it was very good discussion, and I will leave the floor to you with the final thoughts to wrap it up. How would you do
Yeah.
that?
Well, I appreciate it. And first of all, Mari-Liis, I really appreciate you. It's an honor to be on your podcast, and thank you for the honor and the privilege to do that and to speak with your community. I know it's a valuable community. Um, I just want to let you know that wherever you are in life, you are amazing. You have all this. Another, I probably could use this quote. Is we all have the seeds of greatness within us, and I believe you do have greatness in you. And it's in my book too. I really believe that we all have the ability to accomplish anything we want and be who we want to be. So just know that you're amazing, you're awesome, and you can overcome whatever challenges you're struggling with. Just got to be persistent, have that grit, and remember that on the other side of your adversity is success. So just just know that success is coming if you're in a frustration place.
Love it. This is very beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us, Steve. It's really
Appreciate.
been a pleasure. And dear listeners, thank you, of course, for tuning in. And remember to grab my book from the website, thegreatestmarketer.com, and we'll continue working smarter inside the Powerful Marketers Hub. So be empowered, stay aligned, and keep marketing smarter, of course.